Little dignity, sir, please.
This video is already pretty good.
Right. I'm going to edit it and it'll be you.
Hi, welcome back. We're the Book Mavens. I'm Rachel. This is Amanda. And today we're going to be discussing book 3 of the Temeraire series, Black Powder War. And side note, all of my books came in case you missed that, me showing you a book. So here's what the stack looks like. Ta-da!
They're quite beautiful.
They are very beautiful. We were just talking about how we very much like that they're numbered, so we don't have to Google the order.
Yes.
How nice. All right.
Take note of book series for adults publishers.
But they're a nice size. They're easy reads. They're not super tight like a mass paperback, which is so hard to read. There's good, what do they call it, margins, so you can read it. It's not too close to the spine.
A nice floppability, as I call.
Yes.
I always check for a book's floppability.
Yes. And the covers, I mean, these books are really pretty. Would I like them as hardcovers more?
Yes.
But they're beautiful. So you can see each book has these beautiful designs with these dragons with something kind of central to what's happening. They give you kind of little clues too, because in each of these books we're figuring out that we're kind of in a new location. We're always going somewhere different. We're experiencing another culture, which is so fun. I'm loving that. We're both history weirdo nerds, so we're like, all of the culture is so good. We're really enjoying it.
I just want to throw out that I was helping a student today in summer school, and it was on the Napoleonic Wars, and I knew a lot because I had been refreshed by these books.
The best is if you did that, then the dragon Temeraire.
The dragon came
and have to be in
saved
a class.
Like, what are you talking about? I did have a moment of where, like, you know, you just get so into it, and I did have that recognition of like, oh my gosh, wait, this wasn't real because there's no dragon. I was so sad. It's just, you know,
sad.
I got so deep into it that harsh reality really hurt my feelings today.
Good.
Oh, all right.
So where we leave off with book 2.
Okay,
we're still in China.
So they've decided to go back to England at the end of the second book. And so the third book picks up with them still in China, but it's about their journey back. So pretty immediately in the book, the Allegiance, the boat, the dragon transport that they were on, is severely damaged by a fire in the port. And so because they got these kind of mysterious, you've got to hurry back immediately orders, they decide...
It's not just to England, though. It was in order to go meet to get the eggs.
Yeah. There's
eggs. There's dragon eggs. 3.
So they basically, Laurence is like,
who's the deal with?
The Turkish.
Yeah, okay. I just forget.
Yeah, the Turkish. So he's like, we have to go immediately, no time to waste. So they decide to go make the treacherous overland trip. So we get to go, instead of by boat this time, we go overland, over a desert. Like, it's very exciting.
It's very intense.
They get a local guide.
He's half British, half Chinese, right?
Yeah, he's got he's Nepalese because Nepalese. Nepalese? Yeah, he's half English, half Nepalese. So he obviously speaks English. He's very familiar with the area. Like, he kind of mysteriously appears out of nowhere and delivers this message. He's very familiar
with the terrain everywhere. It seems like he's very adaptable.
Is he just like the Renaissance man of these books? Yes, probably.
Yeah.
But his name. Oh, you can do it yourself.
He can. He's just lazy. He'd prefer me to lift. You don't need my water.
We've been doing this for over a year. And he just did that. I knew he did. I knew I didn't make that up last time we were filming.
No, he definitely did.
He just like floated up here out of nowhere. Tricky.
Tarkay.
So Tarkay is agreed to be their guide. They buy a bunch of camels and off they go.
But you gotta love just the whole thing. Okay, we have to buy enough camels because every day the dragons are going to eat some. So they have to make sure
these poor camels, and even they kind of mentioned this one camel upset about being separated from Storm's like, I bet he is. He's already figured it out.
Yeah, it would be a little different. That to me, as I read the series, is like the biggest issue because people talk about like how expensive it is to own like horses and to feed them. I'm like, dragon. dragons and like the big ones eat.
Yeah.
I mean, like
You
you would
eat, like,
need
multiple
an
cows a day.
extensive like. Not everyone could be bonded to a dragon, is all I'm saying.
Who
You
can
would
afford
need
it?
those government funds
Yeah.
to feed them, for sure.
Who can afford it? So Tarkay, and they're going across the desert, and then they arrive in Constantinople.
Mhm.
And then, surprise, Lien.
Oh yeah, that's right.
She has turned into the super villain. We will come back to her character in a second, but she's beat them and is like thwarting them at every path. So the Turkish emperor has decided not to honor the contract, and he tries to play it off like they were never paid. So then they're trying to solve this mystery, and then in the end, it's about their escape from Turkey, trying to get back to Great Britain.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's where the book is. Now, first of all, can we talk about how Naomi Novik? These books are so well paced. As soon as once I'm a couple chapters in, I'm in and I don't stop. I'll bounce back between a different book or two. I'm in, I'm going, I want to know what happens. And she makes a whole book out of a journey. This is a journey book. Like,
almost all of them are.
Yeah.
They're going somewhere all the time.
The last
Which I
book was
love.
a boat ride for most of it, and I was here for it. She's made me so invested because she turned the boat ride to China into this microcosm of British-Chinese relations. And now
So good.
you're looking at, the dangers of transcontinental travel at that point, and then you layer onto it the Turkish Empire and those politics, and I'm just here for it. Naomi Novik.
It's so good. It's amazing just how she implements all these elements. You hit the halfway point of these books, and then you're not going to put it down.
Oh my gosh.
That's what I figured. I've kind of narrowed down. It's about the halfway point, and then you're like, you
gotta go.
have to keep going because you got to know.
I definitely looked up last night. It was way past my bedtime. I was like, ooh, shoot. Okay, so let's talk about Lien. Okay, so Lien is
turned into a supreme villain. For
sure. She's a celestial who has some form of albinoism, and she's completely white, which in Chinese culture is a very unlucky color. So like, she's the one who the prince, who had been fighting against them in the second book, was bonded to, and he was killed in the last book because he was trying to, assassinate and usurp the emperor and the prince who was the heir. And anyway, Temeraire stops it, but she just like cold.
She has
no emotion.
She's playing the long game.
Where
it's like the ultimate villain. It's not about ending you. It's about stripping everything you love and everything that is of value to you. I'm just going to strip it away and just leave you barren to die alone.
In The Princess Bride, where he gives the to the pain speech.
Yeah.
She gives Temeraire a version of that, and he is just like,
leave you your perfect ears.
He's just so shaken about that. He's like, she's like, I'm gonna strip away everything you love,
it really
and your
Temeraire.
precious country, and then I'll take away Laurence, and then you can live as long as you like. And he's just like, I was upset.
They talk about him just kind of like
crawling in on himself.
Yeah,
she's a supervillain, and then off she goes, and she disappears, and everybody's like, okay. Because, but she pops back up. She has kind of inserted herself in with the Turkish court via...
She doesn't stay there long. Because she leaves the Chinese court with the French diplomat.
With the French
ambassador. Right, there he is. So we know that her eventual place is going to be with Napoleon. So this is just a stopping off point. It was just for her to integrate herself in the situation with the eggs, so that they can't get them.
Yeah. She has turned into quite the supervillain because she's a historian. She was a scholar. And so the way that she inserts herself into the court practices in the Turkish section of the book is utterly fascinating. And it's so interesting to see the way different cultures are interacting with the dragons, like the way that she's accepted, not as a dragon, as as a tool to be used, but as an advisor, a representative of another government. Like, it's really fascinating. And then you contrast that with, this is also the first time that Temeraire has a real encounter with feral dragons. And when I say real encounter, not like he battled one or we see one, but like he actually learns to converse and starts to talk to these feral dragons that
the feral
that
dragons
initially had they had attacked him in the mountains, but Temeraire put a stop to that. Little divine wind, and then they made friends. But
the feral dragons are very funny. There's some really great humorous moments.
Personalities. The lead,
with
the
dragon. The eggs. It's just, well, you've got Granby, right? So he's like his first lieutenant. Is that kind of like where he is? So the way their whole hierarchy works with the aviation is that those lieutenants, as they kind of climb those ranks, then they're going to be kind of like first in terms of being able to claim an egg. So when, of course, we have these 3 dragon eggs, unfortunately it gets brought down to 2. There's an accident that happens with one, which is very tragic.
Just absolutely crushes me. And so in their big escape, one of the eggs gets dropped with one of the crew members. And you are just devastated.
And Temeraire, because that egg, it symbolizes so much, but that egg had done nothing. That little dragonette that they just...
Temeraire really struggles with it, because remember, Temeraire is coming off of the experience in Africa, having seen the slave ships, and he's having these conversations with Laurence about, like, well, are dragons slaves, and like, what does that mean? And then he's has a lot of the similar conversations about these eggs, like these eggs are being purchased, and he knows the dragons that the egg comes from. Like, he talks to them while they're in Turkey, and they don't look at their egg that way. Like, they're fine. Like, that, you know what I mean? Like, they're not upset about,
as long as they're going to be well taken care of,
right?
Then they're fine.
The dragons don't seem to be, at least the way they are currently be treated. They're not like, this is my egg and I've got to do with it. They just want the egg to be cared for. So they're not upset that the British have traded to get. It's a fire breathing egg, one of them.
Yes, and that's the big one. That's the one that's of the most value,
right?
Because they don't have any. The Brits do not have any fire breathing breeds.
Temeraire, I think Temeraire just has. You get to watch him struggle with so much, and then that, of course, forces Laurence to struggle with so much, because Temeraire asks really great questions, and he waits for Laurence's answer, and when he's not satisfied, he pushes Laurence. Like, he asks more. And so you get to see Temeraire really come around, because one of the reasons he's willing to leave China is he's like, we're going to go back to Britain and make lives better for British dragons. I'm going to go back and make it better for my friends. And then, like, trying to discuss.
Very optimistic. Laurence has a hard time trying to communicate. Yes, it's important to fight for those things, but he understands, based on probably what he watched his father do in terms of fighting, against slavery, right? So that it's such a process, and so much of it is political and it's maneuvering, and Temeraire doesn't think like that. And so he has this whole, I'm going to lay out all my plans, this is how it should be, and they're going to thank me, and they're going to implement this plan, and it's just going to be great. And
Laurence, bless his heart, is trying so hard to, like, he always calls him my dear, which I think is so sweet. He's just like, we got to lower your expectations.
And he doesn't want to break Temeraire that way. He doesn't want him to lose his dreams for a better future for dragons. But it would be so hard. It's like any parent, I think, with a child as they're maturing and having to face more and more complex kind of roadblocks to things that they want to do, that you don't want to be the one to have to bring them down to reality, So that's a real struggle.
Yeah. And then we meet a new character. She chooses, okay.
Well, Granby does get chosen.
Granby gets selected because...
Yeah. He's the most qualified to receive an egg. And so we know that the little fire breather one is about to hatch. The shell had hardened.
She also decides to hatch at the most inopportune moment of
literally, like, escaping, hatching. It's fine. She wasn't going to wait. Those conversations were really funny. Let me just tell her to wait. She could just hold off for a little while. And they're like,
what do you mean?
What? She'll just hang out in the shell. And what is that?
There's a great line where Temeraire is like, they're like, what do you mean you can hear anything? He goes, you have memories of the shell? He goes, yeah, but, and they're like, well, then why would you, why don't y'all talk about it? He goes, well, it's boring. That's why we come out. It's like, there's nothing to share. There's nothing going on. There's a reason we come out of the shell, because it was boring in there. And it's
just some really great lines that, I laugh out loud.
And the dragon surgeon is just like, oh my gosh, you just dramatically changed the way we looked at this. Hold on. But of course, they're actually under attack when this egg decides to hatch. And she comes out,
just ablazing. Iskirka. She's probably my next favorite dragon. Of course, Temeraire is going to be your favorite, but she's up there just for the comedic relief she supplies, because Spitfire, sassy, full of spunk, and she really gives Granby a hard time.
Would you like a name? I'd love to give you a name. She's like, no, I already got one picked out. It'll be this, but I'll take your harness. Temeraire told me about it. It's fine. Go ahead. And he's like, and Temeraire's like, oops. You can just see Laurence like whipping it to Temeraire, and Temeraire like,
yeah.
Me? I did.
Yeah, she came out with expectations. That's for sure.
And she came out ready to fight. She's like, "There's a battle. Yes. Let's go!" And she's like, she's reminds
small,
me
too. She's not.
She's so teeny tiny. I mean, she's just been born, and she's like ready to go. She's ready to blow fire at people, and Granby is just desperately trying to keep her
on the back of
Temeraire.
She can't fly yet. Literally, her wings haven't.
Yeah, she's and she's got so much attitude for someone who is as little and new and fresh as she is. She's just like, I could take them, and Temeraire's like, sit down, we're going. And then she's like, that's so mean of you to growl like that at somebody who's so little like me. And she just, but she's immediately back. If I could have that level of self-confidence, I mean,
she's got it. She's got it for sure.
And she just keeps getting better and better. And poor Granby, he's trying so hard, but he's immediately smitten with her, of course, because they bond, and she loves him. She's obsessed with him, and and it's so sweet. Temeraire, I will say, has a little bit of a hard time because the possessiveness also applies to his crew. He's like, well, I don't see why she has to take Granby. And he's like, kind of like, can't we give him Alan? Like it's the little midshipman that he's like so about. He's like, can't we give him Alan? And he's like, no, you want her to have the best, and that's a sign of you that you And then he of course has to twist it so it looks like Temeraire comes out looking great. Temeraire's like, well, I guess it's fine. I like it.
I just like it because it makes these dragons relatable, that they have these little streaks of selfishness, and that this idea of kind of being able to show off wealth and privilege. Temeraire's very proud if he wears this necklace with this big pendant on it. He has this pretty breastplate. He's got these talon claw covers. I mean, and he likes his finery, and it's very funny. But he also likes to make sure that Laurence looks good as well. He gave him this really fancy sword. Oh yeah.
And he's like, so they bring a Chinese cook because Temeraire has. And
I love all the food.
I will say this, progressively as the books continue, Laurence just kind of internally bemoans how bougie Temeraire has become about food.
And having a pavilion.
And he keeps trying to spread it to him, but I just love that. And then of course the cook becomes a part of the crew, and the way that he shapes with the treatment of dragons, because he has so much knowledge to bring, and I just really loved it. Safety. They're not in England. They're in Prussia. And they basically get conscripted because the Prussians are like, we were promised 20 British dragons and they never showed up. You're here. You're going to do it. And Temeraire's like, I mean, but then of course Laurence, and it leads to more conversations to do. But I mean, it's a crushing defeat, which is new for Temeraire. He's never really had to retreat and lose.
But it's bad, and they do this mass exodus. They try and there's 1,000 of them, and they try and get them all out on these dragons, and they're falling. They have to be in these nets, and they're being crushed to death. They're just
it's brutal to read.
It is really brutal.
And this is where we see where Leanne has become the supervillain, because this is where you discover that she has aligned herself with Bonaparte, and he's taken her on as his chief counsel, and she has completely changed the way the French are moving their military. She's using the dragons to transport them. It's so you saw in an earlier book where they use these wooden rafts to try to move the French across the channel. She's brought in those cloth nets where they're lighter and they're more mobile, and they're actually using them to move the militias. And she has completely changed the dragon formations. She's come in, and you just see where she's been completely accepted and given reign to make all these changes, and it decimates the Prussians, them. And it is so awful. And Temeraire,
this is his first big loss.
And having to flee, because at the end, they realize if you stay here, you will be captured and they will kill you. You have to go. You've done all you can for us. You must leave, and get the eggs there and everything. And then they go, and that is. You see Temeraire struggle again. he's still so young, but he's had all these like really traumatic experiences, and it's gosh, you just go through so many emotions, just like.
But this is a Skirka. That's that dragon.
I love her.
Yeah, all her spikes. She's pretty prickly. I don't know if I want to ride on her. I don't think I would want to be on her crew. Just saying.
Well, they said that when the first time they tried to like put her in battle, like they try to like harness her all up, that it takes a long time.
If we want to just look for artwork. Yeah.
Okay, and I totally agree with her. I want
Love it.
products. I want visuals of these dragons. I want somebody to
But you have one. There's one.
Well, no, but I want more. I want art of them together so I can compare their size. I want I want merch.
So we leave off with book 3 and we're fleeing. We make it to safety, but they still have these nets full of these people that are dying and in a lot of discomfort.
And that's where it leads.
And so, I mean, they do just kind of pick up. There's
one after the other.
Yeah. I mean, it is definitely meant to be read as a series. I couldn't imagine reading this as a standalone. It'd be weird.
I can't imagine reading these as they came out.
Oh, having to wait?
I could not.
But she releases the first couple in the
She
same
did the
year.
first 3 all the same year, but then it's about a year apart.
Mm-hmm.
You could do it yourself.
Be Daisy. Lift me.
He's such a dragon.
Well, that concludes our conversation about book 3, The Black Powder War in the Temeraire series. So join us next week when we discuss book 4, Empire of Ivory, and see where we kind of pick up with Laurence and Temeraire's story. So we look forward to seeing you then.
Bye.
There's a TikToker who is talking about, they're like, why do they think adults are better at remembering the order of books than YA? And he's showing all these YA titles, 1, 2 volumes, big numbers on the side, and then he holds up like an adult series, and he's like,
nothing.
WTF? Like, what is this? How would I don't know.